Hey, welcome to 6:30 Saturday night. We're streaming live from the Haven on Vine in Marion, Ohio. A bit of a shorter service tonight. The band's taking a night off. We just got done doing the first ever Faith and Family Day at the Marion Popcorn Festival just a couple days ago. Last year, we had, for the first time in 23 years, live Christian music at the Marion County Fair. And this year, we were able to promote the first ever, at least to our knowledge, Faith and Family Day at the Popcorn Festival. So really excited about what God is doing right here in Marion and just humbled to be a part of it. Just special thanks to everyone who made it happen. If you missed it, you can check out the videos on the Created Music Project Facebook page. We had a little bit of everything: an a cappella group, children's choir, show choir, country gospel, gospel blues, Christian rock, praise and worship, hip-hop, various forms of dance, and even some impromptu guitar lessons with the kids in the crowd afterwards. So it was just a really, really good day, and just excited about what God's doing here. And we still got work to do in Marion, so just ask you to continue to pray for our city. In return, I'll be praying for yours. So with that, we're going to be continuing our American Pharisee series that we began last week, kind of looking at Matthew 23, some of the seven woes that Jesus calls the Pharisees out. They were the religious leaders of the day. They were the ones charged for leading people in the faith, but they were, through their hypocrisy and selfishness, leading people astray, and that's what tonight's message is about. Big idea: simply don't lead people astray. I think as people in the church, followers of Jesus, we have to be careful to make sure that our lives are about him and not about us. So with that, Matthew 23, verse 13 is our verse for this week. Woe to you, scribes and Pharisees, hypocrites! You shut the door of the kingdom of heaven in people's faces, for you don't go in, and you don't allow those entering to go in. Strong words from Jesus, so let's break it down. First point for tonight is closing the door to heaven. This is what Jesus was accusing the scribes and the Pharisees of doing. They were the keepers of the law. They were the ones who knew the scriptures, spent their lives studying the word, but they weren't living it out. They weren't allowing the grace of God to enter into their hearts and change their lives. And effect of this was that they were leading people away from God through their actions. And I think as people in the church today, we have to be careful about this, because again, if it becomes about us, then there's no room for Jesus. And that's what we have to be careful of. Jesus in John 10, in his passage about saying how he's the good shepherd, actually describes himself as a door in this analogy that when Jesus is saying they're shutting the door to heaven, that means they're keeping people from coming to God through him. Jesus is our bridge between our Creator and his creation, that we have sinned, we have rebelled, and Jesus comes to redeem us and to restore that relationship. So when the Pharisees are keeping people from entering the door of heaven, that means they're misinterpreting the scriptures. They're leading people astray and away from Jesus, who is our bridge. He is the door. That coming to Jesus is like coming home to our Father in heaven. See, the Pharisees, they had this false piety. It was all about their outward appearance. They wanted to look righteous and put together, but in their hearts, they weren't there, and that hurt people. And we have to be careful today that, especially in the social media age, that we get so caught up in our outward appearances, making sure that people think that we have it all together. But we have to realize that it's about our hearts. What is in our hearts? Do we let Christ come in? Do we allow the Holy Spirit to cleanse us from the inside out? That's what we have to do when we study the Word of God. It's not about what we look like. It's about what's in our hearts and how do we live from there. So we have to be careful not to close the door to heaven because of the way we live. Our own actions or attitudes can have eternal consequences for someone else. That if you lose your cool or blow up on someone, that can lead people away from Jesus. That we have to be on guard at all times to try to be the best ambassadors, the best representation of Jesus that we can. We will fall short. None of us are perfect, but we have to do our best. We have to know that Jesus, the one we follow, he went to the cross for us. He took that pain and that punishment for us. We can endure the trials of this life if we lean on him. Which leads us into the second point. Focus on Jesus, not yourself. This is what he was accusing the Pharisees of doing, that they missed the promised Messiah. They got so caught up in themselves and their selfishness and their outward appearances that they missed Jesus, the promised Messiah, the one that entire Old Testament points to. They were the experts in the law. They knew the scriptures. They should have seen Jesus coming, but they missed it because it became about them. And for us today, we have to do the same. We can't allow ourselves to get so caught up in ourselves that we miss Jesus. Because Jesus is here and he is coming again. Jesus, he is the fulfillment of both the Old Testament scriptures, and he is the only way into heaven, that he is that door that we enter into, that he fulfilled the law so that we can be free of our burden of sin. That the rebellion that we have in our lives, the sin that we commit, the things that we do that keep us from God, Jesus paid the price for, so that we don't have that burden. He took that burden for us so that we could be free. The Pharisees, they put more burdens on people. They tried to have people, live to this outward appearance, to do all these religious things, but they didn't care about people's hearts. They didn't care about people's souls. That's what we have to be mindful of as we follow Jesus, that it's not about outward appearances. It's about our hearts. It's about our souls. It's about making sure that we are doing our best to bring as many people with us to heaven as possible. Being a Christian is not joining a club. It's not, a secret society of any sorts. It's a family. And we are called to welcome in as many people into our family as possible. A popular prayer is less of me and more of you. And that's just perfect for this segment, that should be our hearts. Less of me and more of you. It's about laying down our will so that we can fulfill the will of our Father in heaven. And so bottom line is that our faith must be in Jesus rather than in our programs or our leaders. I think in churches, it's easy to get caught up in a leadership cult, that we worship our pastors rather than Jesus, or we lift our worship team up on a pedestal, but we forget that they're just a vessel so that we can worship Jesus. Our programs, there's so many wonderful programs out there that lead people to Jesus. But if we become so much about the programs that we're just going through the motions, then we lose sight of the big picture. Remember, everything we do as a follower of Jesus, whether it's in a church building or outside somewhere, it's about Jesus. It's about letting people know what he did for us on the cross, who he was, what he stood for, what he is calling us to do. To love, to redeem, to restore. That is the mission of Jesus that we are to continue. Now, for the third point, I want to take a counterpoint, and that is, blessed are the poor in spirit. As I was looking through a lot of the commentaries, a lot of scholars really, they contrasted the seven woes with the Beatitudes, the blessings in Matthew 5, the beginning of the Sermon on the Mount, where Jesus kind of lays out, what it should look like to be a follower of Jesus. And we did a series on this a few years ago. Videos are on the website, createdchurch.net. But blessed are the poor, this is what Jesus says. Blessed are the poor in spirit, for theirs is the kingdom of heaven. That the kingdom of heaven is in reverse of this world, that it's not, you don't have to have, all these religious hoops. You don't have to have clout in this world, or political power, or lots of money to be on top in the kingdom of heaven. The people who are on top in the kingdom of heaven are the ones who serve, the ones who lay down their lives. And this is the example that Jesus set for us when he washed his disciples' feet, when he took up the cross, when he healed anyone who came to him. Even people who were considered unclean, even people who were considered them or those people. He crossed racial lines with the Samaritans. He broke tradition in order to love people. We have to be careful not to get caught up in the trap of the Pharisees, that we cling to traditions while forgetting to love people. Traditions are great if they lead people to Jesus. If they lead people away from Jesus, then we need to distance ourselves, because everything we do should lead people to Jesus. The scribes and the Pharisees, they simply were not poor in the spirit, for they lifted themselves above others. They liked their prominent seats in the synagogues or in social gatherings. They wore their fancy garments. They made people see that they were praying and stuff with flowery words and all these things, but their hearts were sick. And we see this same hypocrisy unfortunately, in the church today, that we have, when it becomes about us, it's so easy. It's so easy to allow things to become about us. That's what this culture is that we live in. It's all about the individual and your self-expression and self-branding, and it's dangerous. It's a slippery slope. We need to use our social media platforms to point people to Jesus, to love, to lift people up. So much negativity, so much tearing people down, and we need to be the salt of the earth. We need to be the light of the world. We need to be the men and women of faith that God created us to be. The bottom line is that if your life is all about you, you will lead people astray. You will lead them away from Jesus. And that is what we can't do. So be bold in faith and be humble in spirit. That's all I got for this week. I just want to say that those affected by Hurricane Dorian, our prayers are with you. Please continue to pray for people affected by that, especially down in the Bahamas. Some of the pictures and videos are just crazy. So we're definitely praying for those affected. And please keep those in your prayers. And then if you want to join us, go.createdchurch.net. That's our new member site we just rolled out. You can go there to post prayer requests. We're going to be putting some additional Bible study materials on there in a couple coming months, and then also can connect with some of our global missionary partners. So really excited about, we're really kind of have almost all of our websites under construction right now. I think we have 6 different sites that are connected for all the various things we do, the music, the sports, the social media, and whatnot. So just really excited about how everything's coming together. But go.createdchurch.net, please sign up for that. We got a lot of cool things coming. Created Music Project Facebook page if you want to check out the Popcorn Festival videos. If you like music, I'm sure there is one of those groups you're going to like. So there's a lot of talent, a lot of passion. We're just, again, really excited about what God's doing. So just leave a comment or let us know how we can be praying for you, what God's doing in your life, and what we can do to help you be who you were created to be. Be blessed. We'll see you back here next week.